we at Shrine University want to say thank you for attending our live stream session. Now, I know I'm going to say this, but if Dr. Dreeben wants to change this, you're more than welcome to. I do ask that you keep yourself muted to be respectful of others. If you have a question that you want to send out there, or if you have something that just crosses your mind, by all means, you're more than welcome to just type in the chat, and we'll get after that question as soon as we possibly can. But I do want to turn it over to Dr. Dreeben. I don't want to take too much of his time or steal any type of limelight. So without further ado, I'll let Dr. Dreeben tell you about the psychology department, as well as any type of life you might want to know about, and anything that he might want to talk about in respect to his department and everything else. But without further ado, I'll pass it over to Dr. Dreeben.
Thank you, Mike. Can everybody hear me? All right, wonderful. I'm really happy to get to be here with you all today. Like Mike said, I'm Dr. Dreeben. I'm the chair of the psychology department, and yeah, I wish I were meeting with you all in person, but this is pretty good as well. I'm happy that you're interested in psychology generally, and that you're interested in Shriner University specifically. I'll kind of give you an overview of the department and myself and my colleagues. And I hope I can paint a picture of, I think, the real strengths that we have as a department. And then I'm absolutely open to answering any questions that you have. If typing those in is the best way, Mike, was that your suggestion, to type in questions?
So right now, Dr. Dreeben, what I was going to say right now, Dr. Dreeben, is if a student doesn't feel comfortable being on audio or even on video, you're more than welcome to submit questions through there. That way you can, this is towards you, Dr. Dreeben, is you can talk about the department, anything you want to, and if something crosses the mind of a student and you don't want to feel like you're interrupted of any sort, or if you're okay with that, they can easily just type in the chat and we can get after those questions one at a time.
That sounds like a plan. I'm thinking flexibility is the name of the game here.
Definitely.
All right, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a clinical psychologist by training, so I'm a licensed psychologist. I was in clinical practice before returning back to academia. So my specific interests lie in the mental health realm of things. And I know a lot of our students are interested in psychology, specifically with aspirations of maybe one day working in the mental health professions. And so that's something that I've built up at Shriner. I think it's something that we do really, really well. It's kind of strange for me to say that, since I know that's kind of patting myself on the back on that. But I hope that if you're looking at other universities, you check out some of the opportunities that they have in that realm. So when I think about what's distinctive about us, one thing that jumps to mind is we have a really, really strong, robust internship program. Very unusual for undergraduate schools to have programs like the one that we have. This past year, I think I had 18 students in active internships. The vast majority of these internships are the kind of opportunities that speaking from my personal experience, I never got anywhere close to that sort of opportunity until graduate school. And our students do really well. They do really, really well. It prepares them exceptionally well for careers after Shriner. It prepares them well for graduate school and a variety of different types of graduate programs that they go into. If you're curious what some of these, I can talk more about what some of the sites are, but it's the sort of thing. We have several students who've gone to Kerrville State Hospital. We have one of 3 forensic, that is criminal psychiatric hospitals in the state of Texas here. So we have students who are seeing some of the highest profile, not guilty by reason of insanity type cases. They shadow psychologists. We have students who work with art therapists exclusively, music therapists. We have some really good collaborations there. I have students who work for the local community mental health organization. So here in Kerrville, we have Hill Country MHDD, which serves 19 counties, if I remember right. It goes from, effectively, if you live anywhere between San Marcos and Del Rio, that's a huge area. Kerrville is the headquarters for all mental health services. And so we have a lot of services that are here in Kerrville, and our students do things like crisis units, crisis outpatient, counseling services, autism spectrum disorder services, intellectual and developmental disability services. So that just to name a few. We have students who work in domestic abuse shelters, who do forensic interviewing, who do school psychology. I can't list them all. It's a really extensive program. As students are doing these internships in our program, most of them do a junior, senior year, although I can set students up. I should have mentioned lots of drug and alcohol rehab here, opportunities for our students too. As our students are doing that, they're meeting with me as well. We have a class where our students are learning clinical ethics, multicultural awareness, professional expectations, learning how to deconstruct clinical interactions and analyze them. And I mean, it's graduate type work, and I make a real effort to make sure our students get those kinds of opportunities. I think it's unique, and I'd be happy to speak more if there's specific areas you're interested in working on. Of course, that's just one class that we offer here. We offer a wide breadth of psychology-related courses. We cover all the bases. I'd like to think that we do a good job of covering the foundations, but we also have an eye towards how can this be useful for our students. We have a new faculty member coming in this fall who has a wonderful track record with undergraduate research, and she's going to really get students involved doing a lot of research. I've had students involved with my research as well. I recently published on widowhood and resilience. That's an area I've been working on. Have some other projects we're working on right now as well. In my mind, and I hope this speaks to some of you, a good college experience, particularly as you're preparing for psychology and psychology-related fields, it should bridge that gap between applied practice and learning the foundations and the kinds of skills that will translate any types of career that you might consider, even if it's totally unrelated to psychology. And I think we walk that line well, where the two are in conversation with each other as students are moving through our program. The other thing I would highlight that I think we do well is focusing on the student. And if you're looking at Schreiner, I hope that's something you care about, because it's something we pride ourselves on. I know my students really well. It's important to me that they feel like their classroom experience is valuable, that they're getting what they want out of their experience at Schreiner. And by the time they're juniors or seniors, I have a really strong sense of who my students are. And it's important to me to help open doors and help people navigate to figure out what's next. Sometimes that's a student coming in and saying, "Hey, Dr. Dreeben, I'm going back to Houston for the summer. I really want to work in forensic psychology." And I can help them figure out some opportunities. And sometimes it's me picking up the phone and using that doctor title, which comes in handy every now and then, and saying, "Hey, this is Dr. Dreeben. I'm the chair of the psychology department. Let me tell you about this student that I think would be a great fit. Would you have any opportunities for a student with these particular interests?" I'm happy to do that sort of thing. I feel like it's part of what I'm called to do as a professor at Schreiner. And I hope I put my email down there. My students know that I'm here and available for them. I hope you all feel free to reach out to if you have specific questions or interests, anything related to psychology or Schreiner. If you can't tell, I'm really passionate about it. Psychology is the study of human nature. It's awesome stuff. Everybody should love this. It's important. You need to know this information, whether you're going into a psychology-related career or not. So it's easy for me to get up in class and get really excited every time. So I can pretty much guarantee that. And I think I speak for the other faculty members in psychology that we all just have a real passion, both for the subject matter and for the students that we serve. Okay, there's my spiel. That's from my heart. I love this job. It's the best job I've ever had. And I hope you all would consider, joining us. It's a real tight-knit community. This fall, we did our first. I had everybody over to my house, which is where we're at right now, and had just a group dinner. And I our students here. They're wonderful people to get to spend time with in the classroom, to think deeply, and to help help people become who they're striving to be. It's really a wonderful thing. All right, I think I see a question. It says, is this a good time to
Yeah,
jump into that? All
definitely.
right.
Anytime you want to start taking questions, by all means, or I can take
All right.
over and give a long-winded spiel. But
Yeah, there's one. I mean, I thought a lot about this. I care a lot about this job, so I know what I'm passionate about here. But I
yeah,
can totally answer specific questions. All
yeah,
right, Samantha says, so I'm thinking about doing psychology as a minor, but majoring in business administration. I want to eventually go into CIA. Cool. Is there anything directly related to that field through the psychology department? At the moment, I'm having a hard time choosing between criminal justice and psychology. I've taken college courses for both. I like them both. Any suggestions? Yes. A couple things. We have a course specifically in criminal behavior that is designed for people with interest in those two overlapping fields. The other thing I would point you to are the internship opportunities in this area. I mentioned the Kerrville State Hospital. It's a very unique opportunity to get to work in a forensic psychiatric hospital. And we always have students over there. Other opportunities, there's an organization called Kids Advocacy Place in Kerrville. They do forensic interviews. It's a little different than CIA, but if you want to get a sense of what a real forensic interview is like, our students often go, what they'll have our students do is they're in the room where typically some law enforcement official, social worker, they'll be talking into the earpiece of the person who's interviewing kids. These kids have been abused, gone through horrible trauma. And our students are there listening live, watching over the video feed as they're feeding them questions to ask. It is really intense work, really, really intense work. I don't like to send students there until I have a pretty good sense if they're ready for it, but it's a wonderful opportunity, very eye-opening for our students who've done that. We've also sent students to, that's not how I want to say it. Our students have served as interns in juvenile probation. That's a better way of putting it. So if you want some forensic experience that way, and of course, anything tangentially related we can get into. As far as the CIA specifically, I think that, I can't speak to whether there's internship. I mean, not in Kerrville. I can say that pretty definitively, nor most anywhere. They may have some internships for students who are interested. I think the more important thing is to get some kind of forensic experience and, take the courses and, try and build up some relationships with people who are in related careers to help kind of open doors along the path there. We also have a scattering of courses across campus that have a forensic orientation to them. With the CIA, it might be helpful to do things like international relations. We have a chemistry course related to forensics. Business administration it's a great minor as well. And maybe this is a broader point that everyone would be interested in knowing. The psychology major at Schreiner is one of the more flexible majors in that we leave a lot of courses open for students to either experiment with other classes, take electives, which I think is important in getting a well-rounded education, or to add a double major or a minor. It's very easy to do that. And so you certainly could do that as well. That's my suggestion. I hope that answered your question.
I like it. I like the response, Dr. Dreeben.
Okay, good.
Usually, I always ask a number of questions. I try not to put the instructors on the spot, but you really knocked it out of the park when it came to. I was going to ask the internships, their research, and you definitely got that one real fast. The next one, and this is something I come across. I know some students in here already have already heard my little questions that I like to ask from time to time. But when I meet with students, when we are able to meet with students face to face, as well as parents, or even when I have them on the phone, they're asking, what are the class sizes like? They're freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. And I tell them that they're relatively small, and I can almost hear it through the phone that their jaw drops and hits the floor, and they're almost at a disbelief, and they almost don't believe me. So coming from an instructor standpoint, what are the size of classrooms that you see from freshman all the way to senior year?
Yeah, so My answer won't reflect Schreiner broadly. We're a very popular major, and I'm really happy about that. I think I wouldn't take that as a negative. I think it's a sign that students like what we're doing. But our classes probably run a little larger than the typical Schreiner class, but a lot smaller than a class at most other institutions. So, in a introduction to psychology class, for instance, you can expect 20 to 25 students. That's a fairly intimate class for a college type thing. Upper levels, similar, depending on the popularity, could even go up a little bit. We have some that go a little bit under, but kind of in that range. The good thing that I can point to, I mean, those are small. I know a lot of people will be going, well, that's still really small, and it is. I often get to have students more than once, and it's nice in that I just get to know them after a while that way. And so the one of the advantages of small classes is that opportunity to get to know your professor. We're also a really small campus, and well, I mean, physically it's a pretty big campus, but in terms of the number of people, you just get to know each other. And so I would point to that as a real strength, that if you want the kind of college experience where you get to know your professor and your professor gets to know you and takes an interest in your success in your life, that's a real part of the Schreiner experience, in my opinion.
Definitely. I have another question, and not to put you on the spot.
No, this is great.
Where do you see students, I guess, in your area or department when they graduate? Where do you see them going, more or less?
Yeah.
Like, have you seen them go to certain schools or type of career paths? Where are they going from Schreiner to, like, this school, that school?
Yeah. I mean, the answer is so many different places. We don't have like one place that I would point to more so than others.
Yeah.
In my internship class, I always have one class designated for returning students who've gone on either to careers in mental health related careers or professions or to graduate school. I think this year I had 8 or 9 students come back, which I love. It makes me super happy. I hope my students enjoy hearing from them as much as I do, seeing all these people I care about. But I'm thinking of that as a representative sample. We have a number of students who go on to Masters of Social Work programs that, draw a lot from students in Texas. So they tend to be Texas programs. I'm thinking off the top of my head, Baylor, UTSA, Our Lady of the Lake, TCU, let's see, where else? I'm forgetting a lot. Masters of Counseling programs, very popular for our students. Again, UTSA, Texas State, University of Houston. Abilene Christian had a student recently. Now you're putting me on the spot. I'm trying to think. There's a lot. And then so Masters of Counseling, Masters of Social Work, very, very popular options for our students. And then we have, I'm trying to think, any other, behavior analysis. We had some students go off and do behavior analysis master's programs. I can think of one student who did criminal justice after our program. But not all students want to go to graduate school. And I don't push people in that direction if it's not something you want to do. There's this misconception out there that you have to go to graduate school to do anything meaningful in the field of psychology. And it's just not true. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, I mentioned earlier, Hill Country Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities, which is headquartered here in Kerrville. They've hired a lot of our students to be in a lot of kind of in supervisory type positions. That bachelor's goes a long way for those types of positions. So they're doing care coordination, doing different types of case management work. We've also had students get various jobs in drug and alcohol rehab, Kerrville State Hospital, just direct support kind of positions, which I think are really great to get outside of right after college. A, because they pay perfectly well. And secondly, they often tell our students, what they're really passionate about and what they're not. I hope to bypass that and do it some via internships in college, but to get a full year or two in one of those professions is really helpful. And sometimes people go and do that and say, no, this is what I love. Like these are my people. This is my calling, and they stick with it. And, you know, they keep moving up the ladder into greater levels of responsibility and administration. So there's not a one size fits all for our department. And then there's students who do, like I have a student this year who had an amazing study abroad experience, and she's going to work for an organization that puts on study abroad programs. And she's a psychology major, and I know she's going to use all the human nature, how people think, feel, and act, and everything she does there. But it's not a mental health career, and that's great. I'm really excited for her. I couldn't be happier. It ended up being a really good fit for her. And some of these, this is important. Some of these organizations that I'm mentioning end up hiring our students. So I can think of a few, and sometimes our students turn them down too, which that's fine. But our students are getting jobs at places like Hill Country MHDD, the Hill Country Youth Ranch, K-Star. Those are both emergency shelters for abused and neglected children and teens. Students have been offered jobs at the domestic shelter here. So, you know, you do some of these activities, some of these internships, people realize the value that you bring, and that anxiety about what's the first job I'm going to get out after college goes down a little bit. People are fighting over you instead of the other way around. That's my goals for my students to be in that spot. I see a question here. Is there a sport psychology class? Yes. Interestingly, it's taught by an exercise science professor who's terrific, Dr. Matt Robinson. He teaches a class in sports psychology. We work closely with exercise science, and I don't want to put this out there as a promise, but we've talked about growing sport psychology as an area of offering. So if that's something you're interested in. It's something we're interested in too. Right now, we have one course with the possibility of growing that at some point. Is that supposed to be? I see physiology in business, but I wonder if I'm guessing that's supposed to be psychology. There is a course called organizational behavior that's offered through the business program, and it kind of relates to the industrial organizational psychology field, which is the psychology of business. There are also, opportunities to get internships and things like that. If you're interested, to try and work with an IO psychologist or to work in human resources or some of these fields where you see the intersection between business and psychology. But as far as courses, right now it's that one course in the business department. Okay.
Let's see.
Oh, study abroad opportunities. I'm behind. How do I scroll up? Let's see. Sports psychology, I see that. Okay. As far as study abroad, typically our students who studied abroad just go and do something they're really interested in. It doesn't have to be psychology related. And I think that's one of the benefits of our major is that there's enough flexibility in it. Again, I mentioned the double majors, the minors, that if you want to go and study in Prague or in Rio or wherever, you can just take a semester and do it. You have plenty of electives to do so. I think it's part of, we have a mission statement at Schreiner, developing students for purposeful lives and meaningful work in a changing global society. So if we're really doing what we say we're doing, preparing you to work in a world that's increasingly global, where you need to be aware of the diversity of people and cultures out there. I think it's important. I'm all for it. So I hope that answers that question. We don't have a psychology specific study abroad program. Although if you came to me and said, look, I'd really like to study abroad and find something that builds on a psychology coursework, I feel confident we could do a Google search and figure it out in 10 minutes. I'd be happy to figure that out. I haven't had a student ask me that, to be honest. Normally they just want to go and do some study abroad, and that's great.
So I think the other two are just comments just saying they were about to ask about the psychology, the sports psychology, as well as great to hear that there is a type of sports psychology. My own questions that I have, and I know probably nobody's heard about this just yet from the other ones, is are there any types of, I guess, work studies or even a type of peer tutoring that is offered through psychology? Because I know that you said psychology is a very big department. So I'm just wondering what that looks like through the psychology department.
We've had peer tutors in the past available for students who tend to be our upper level, psychology majors, and they can tutor lower level psychology students. I've had a couple students do dean scholarships, which is sort of like a work study where they help specifically with some of the research that I've been engaged in. I mentioned we have this new faculty member coming in. I suspect she might have some opportunities. I can't speak specifically to whether she'll have a work study opportunity. If I can turn the tables a little bit, I think a great place to practice some of the interpersonal skills, listening skills, people skills that I emphasize particularly in classes like Introduction to Counseling is to work in admissions. Yeah.
Come over here. We can totally use all the help we can possibly get all the time.
Take Intro to Counseling and then go work in admissions. It's a wonderful opportunity to practice all those skills that we're training people in. There's other opportunities like that on campus. Be happy to point you to.
Definitely. Well, Dr. Dreeben, we're close to that time. If you have anything else or if anybody has any questions, please, by all means, feel free to reach out to us. Dr. Dreeben has provided his own email address, as well as I provided the admissions. That way we can look into if you have any questions about your application or what the next steps are, where you're at in those steps, what we can possibly help you in terms of maybe scholarships or something else. By all means, you're more than welcome to send us any of your questions at any time. Like I always say, there are no silly questions. By all means, toss them out. And if you got something 10 minutes after this live stream and you're like, I just thought of it, by all means, let us know. That's what we're here for. We provide you with the information. You just got to reach out to us. But again, I want to say thank you for joining us today at this live stream, and reach out to us if you have any questions. We're here to help you out every step of the way. But other than that, I hope you all have a great rest of the day, okay?
Thank you all. I hope I get to see you in person at some point. Thanks for setting this up, and do feel free to send me any questions.
All right. We hope to see you guys become a future Shriner University Mountaineer. And if that's all, y'all have a great day, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.